Hello and welcome to Bothering Strangers with Max Hearing. I'm Max Hearing, and today we have our first show with two guests. And those two guests are Landon Campbell and Michael Holmes of the In Their 20s podcast. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Super excited.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Thanks for coming on. You guys started this podcast in the pandemic in their 20s, like in the summer.
Mhm.
And you've had some insane guests so far. I mean, you've had just to name like a couple, Beto O'Rourke. I wrote this down. Beto O'Rourke. I forget things.
If you need help, let us know.
I guess you know Gary Vaynerchuk's younger brother, AJ Vaynerchuk, who's very involved with Gary Vaynerchuk's company, Gary
Yep.
V's company. Tim Hardaway Sr., the NBA Hall of Famer. You've had like a bunch, and that's just like a couple,
Yeah.
and it's been all over the place. So before we even get into that, what was like? So you guys know each other from college, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what made you guys want to be like, well, yeah, let's do this podcast in their 20s?
I feel like it's always been something in the background that we've always spoken about. Like, how fun would it be to create a podcast? But I mean, the times that we've had those conversations, we'd also be like, okay, like what the hell would we talk about? Because with the podcast, you want to be unique. You want to create something that people want to listen to. But there are just so many subjects to talk about, so many different things. And we didn't really come up with our idea until, the pandemic came, as you mentioned. We created In Their 20s as a result of COVID-19. We noticed just this trend of people losing their jobs, and there was just so much sadness and negativity and questions about what the hell I need to do in my 20s and where I need to go, and just stress. And people are still seeing that today, because we're not completely fine yet. We're still seeing a lot of people struggle and to find jobs and find work. So we wanted to be able to create something that could send back positivity, give people advice that they need. And the best way to do that has been by speaking with influential people about what they did in their 20s, a very pivotal time in your life, and just sharing that with people.
That may have been the most professional answer I've ever heard. Okay, so I mean, I think the idea is great. I like when I first saw it. I don't know if it was on LinkedIn. I don't know where I saw it. I was like, so a podcast designed for like young, kind of Gen Z, millennial, maybe young or yeah, just maybe like back end of millennials. Uh, who came up? Who initiated it? Was it Michael? Were you the one who initiated like the whole podcast? You're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Honestly, I think it was more of a collaboration. Me and Landon had worked on things in the past, and we kind of just wanted, we're like, how do we do something right now? Because we had this one idea, and it unfortunately had fallen through just because, we couldn't do things in person anymore. And we're like, okay, what can we do? What is out there that is possible for us to do right now? So we started to think through ideas, and we thought about, a lot of people in their 20s right now who may not know where to go or what to do. So we decided, let's make this podcast. That's really how we came up with it. And we did do it kind of together. So
That's me, Michael. I don't know what I'm doing right now. When you said that, I was like, oh man, that's literally my life. Oh wow. So I mean, you guys were lucky enough. You guys are both employed at the moment, right?
Yes.
So your jobs
correct.
didn't fall.
Yes.
You were proactive about it, unlike me, and you like got jobs and then like they didn't like furlough you or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we got jobs as a result of the pandemic. We already knew,
Right.
what we would be doing before this crazy thing happened that no one expected. So, we were fortunate in that, and we do appreciate our current employers. But since we did have a little extra free time on the weekends, especially since we weren't going out as much, this is the perfect thing to do.
So I mean, did you guys personally feel like that kind of like sense of being lost? Because like I feel like even if you do a job and even if you may be making steady income in your 20s, there still is a sense of like, who am I? What am I doing? Like do I want this job as a career? So did you guys also kind of have that feeling like maybe it would also help us if we kind of were able to tap in with people like
Oh,
that?
100%, 100%, man. From every single interview we have, we're fortunate to be speaking with these great people. We learn something new every single day. So not only are we trying to share good advice for others, the personal stuff that we've learned throughout this journey about creating a business, creating a podcast, building your brand from people that we've had on has been immensely gratifying and super helpful for us on this journey. And it's also been an uncertain journey for us too. I mean, starting work or full-time jobs, like out of the office, remote. I mean, we all have to do that too. So it's not like because we have these jobs, we've had everything figured out. No, I mean, this podcast is super helpful for our growth as well. And we're just really looking forward to what's to come.
Who was that one guest for you guys where you were like you reached out to him or her and you didn't think it was gonna happen, but like it did happen? Who was that first guest for you guys?
Landon, do you recall?
Like the biggest guest we've had, or just like an unexpected one that we weren't, even thinking that person would say yes?
He said, yeah, first one that we kind of were like, we didn't see this coming.
Yeah. It's honestly probably a good sign that we're having trouble answering this because we've had some pretty cool people on.
Yeah. It's a great sign.
I remember vividly. Yeah. I remember vividly receiving that AJ Vaynerchuk email, Gary Vee's younger brother. Just because, I followed his company for a long time, really respect what him and his brother have built. And that was just another one that we kind of sent out, not expecting to hear back. But I do remember it because we were back 10 minutes later, and that's like no exaggeration. He legit emailed like 10 minutes after I sent this long email. For sure didn't read the whole thing, but maybe even less than 10 minutes. But I do remember just calling Michael after we received that one. I was just like, wow, really cool. I think a big part of it was just the fact that we, could cite some of the past interviews that we had in that. Being able to say we've had Beto O'Rourke and Norway Senior raises eyebrows for sure. And of course, like the other guests we've had too. But, that's something that we struggled with at the beginning because we didn't really have a platform. We didn't have much. And we're asking all these influential people to come on and they're like, okay, like, what value is this going to give me? So, to be able to have a nice, inventory of awesome people that we've had come on, that's helped us a lot. And the AJ Vaynerchuk example just stands out to me.
I would even say that first interview we had with like a very large person was I don't know, that first interview we had with the very large person. Why can't I think of their name? Beto O'Rourke. Yeah, it was with Beto O'Rourke, and I don't know why that was just missing my mind there. But even when we had him on, it was just incredible to see like how far we had come. It had obviously been pretty close to us starting, but it was still like, it was definitely a person that we were like, we can't believe we got him. And it truly was amazing to have someone like that on and kind of kick off this road we've had this year.
Yeah.
I think when I saw Beto O'Rourke, I was like, oh man, they're really legit. Because like as a viewer, like, what is it for me? Like it's Tim DeLaGhetto, easy. Like I sent him, I was like, there's no way he's responding to this, and whatever, what happened. But if I was like, Beto O'Rourke, that's serious. So when you guys, if you like, if myself or the viewer were to like just look at who they've had as guests on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever, you'd see like a diversity of different people in terms of like their backgrounds. So do you guys like just kind of text back like, oh, what about this person? What about this person? What's the process being like into who you reach out to?
Yeah. We made it evident from the early days that we need to have different people, different voices, people that look different, people that have different backgrounds, because we didn't want to have like two interviews that were too similar. So especially when we started, we had goals of, okay, we need to get someone from this industry and that industry. And actively, ever since we started to this day, we're constantly looking for unique stories. There's a lot of people that will reach out to us asking to come on. Some we kind of have to push to the side because after hearing their story, it's a little, too similar to what we have so far. We've noticed that especially in the early days, you got to really just diversify as much as you can. Speak with different people, very different from yourself too. We don't want anybody to come on that's, exactly like us. So we've really made it important to speak with, some politicians, athletes, celebrities, chefs, doctors, executives, as many different stories that we can tell. So we can faithfully say that for everybody that wants to watch in their 20s, there's an interview for you.
That led me to my next question. I wrote this down even, so you know it's serious. How well with the name of your podcast being in their 20s, I feel like you're at risk of falling to like the niche, like, only for people who are like 22 to 26, something like that, like young professionals. So how do you not do that? How do you like kind of keep a broader audience and not get too niche with your crowds?
Of course.
I think we kind of gather people both below and above that line. There's people above who really just want to see, how did this person come about? So, for example, we were speaking with the interview we have coming out. We have a restaurateur who was talking about how he did all these things in his 20s, and one time he had this like group of people at his restaurant, and how it was kind of like, it's just kind of different because he was talking about how these people came in and it was this experience that he had, but it's kind of like things like those that make a bigger, different experience for our viewers, So that could be really something for someone in their 40s, 30s, below their 20s. There's a lot of information out there that we have that could really go any way. It could be just like a story that they're telling about their 20s that's super interesting. It could also be something that they think that it's something very useful to everyone. So it's because most of the time they'll even quantify in our podcast, this isn't necessarily advice for people in their 20s, but it is advice for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll even add on to that. You can do something special with your life at any age. You can do something special in your 30s, in your 40s, in your teens, in your 80s. It really doesn't matter. But I mean, I will say, and Michael and I really, agree with this, and this really goes into our brand. The 20s is just such like it's a pivotal moment and such an interesting moment in your life. You're getting out of college for the first time. You're entering the real world. You're making so many mistakes. You're taking risks. You don't have a family. You don't have a mortgage usually a lot of times. So you're able to do a lot of these cool things. That's something that we all have in common. I mean, again, you have people like Samuel L. Jackson who didn't really make his big break until he was like in his 40s or something. And then you have people that we've interviewed who, became multimillionaires in their teens. So what I'm saying though is no matter where you are in your life, successful, not successful, however you view yourself, it's really clear to say that the 20s, so much can happen in this 10-year window. And those are the stories that we are trying to share. It's not for just people in their 20s, but we are sharing stories of people, in their 20s.
I feel like people forget that advice tends to work for a lot of groups, like it may be pushed to one group, but it tends, not all the time, but it tends to work for like essentially everyone on some level. And people like, oh, it's not for me. Well, it's advice. Like I think we can always use advice in life because we forget.
Yeah. Agree, 100%.
And we definitely do have that older set of viewers that kind of look at our content, and that's what they look at it for. Maybe it's how they came into it is maybe it's a person they know or someone they know through something, and they kind of come into our content and they see like, oh, this is actually something I might kind of like. So
did you guys have the issue at first when you were like, not that you're necessarily the most seasoned podcasters right now, but when you were like really at the beginning where, you would ask these questions to people and you'd be like, what do you think about this? Or give advice to this group, whatever it may have been. And you were expecting like this super deep, like philosophical answer where they like pour their heart and soul into it. And then you ended up getting like, so like, yeah, all you should do is be consistent. Did you have something like that?
Damn. I'm trying to think back.
That's a good question, isn't it?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
I know they're one of those difficult questions to answer though, because I can't think of one. I don't know. What do you think, Michael?
Me, the only time I can really think about what he's talking about is our first podcast. Remember when we, had like come up with a bunch of different questions we wanted to ask, and then he's kind of like, oh, this, but it was really just that first that first go through where we had these list of questions, and he was like, oh, well, some of these, they don't necessarily apply to me. And we're like, all right, we got it. After that, we kind of knew, like, okay, we got to kind of do this with the questions. We kind of got to do this. So it's kind of like catered to the person, but also, something that everybody would want to listen to.
Yeah, because when we started, we had, and now I'm kind of remembering it a little better. When we started, we had standard questions that we were just going to ask everybody.
Oh, wow.
Not unique about, like the person.
Not specific to them.
Not specific, which is the red flag.
Right,
because
absolutely.
that, kept us from doing a lot of research on these people. And, that really led us to need to, individualize and focus each interview on, that person. So I'd say now we're at a point where we do a bunch of research on the individuals. We have, a set of questions that are very specific, but we're often on script. We don't stick too much with that because at the same time, we're listening to these people and they're sharing their own stories. So their stories will lead to new questions, yada, yada, yada. So we try and just keep them specific, non-specific as much as we can now.
Are you guys ready to get controversial?
Sure.
All right.
I like to throw it out at random times.
All right.
So I'm just gonna throw a set of questions. You can make them short or long answers.
Okay.
It's
What's
probably
the structure? Is it one at a time, or you want to hear from both of us?
They're gonna be for it's like individual answers for both you, Landon, and Michael as well.
Okay.
So then, they range in controversy as well. So don't be too worried. Okay. First question is you've had a lot of guests. Who was your favorite guest?
Shit. Is this timed, by the way? Or?
No, I'm not your timing it, but it's supposed to be like an off the dome type question. Michael, you can go if Landon doesn't have an answer as well.
Yeah, I guess I have one right away. It's Chef Mike was one of my favorites. Nothing to do with my career, nothing to do with anything like that. So super interesting how it falls into kind of my genre, right? I had known him previously, not physically known him, just know of him. And it was pretty amazing to see, how he got to where he is and what he's doing now and what he did back then. And it was really interesting to kind of just see that and see what advice he had for people in their 20s. And yeah, Chef Mike's a pretty amazing person overall.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Are you taking his answer, Landon?
No. I'm just commenting, saying it was a good one. But my favorite, his name is Darius Fleming. So he is a former NFL athlete, Super Bowl as well. Won with the Patriots, played with the 49ers. Amazing, linebacker, sports player. But career, finished up with that, and he was just really confused about, okay, what do I need to be doing now? What does that pivot look like? So he did transition over to corporate America, and that was the focus on a lot of the interview. Speaking about his NFL days, but more about the transition into, what he's working on now at a startup, and worked at LinkedIn also, right after the NFL. So what that transition was like. And I know not everybody that listens will have won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and have played in the NFL, but I love the interviews that we have where people are sharing their own stories and ways that they did something, and it can really be applied to the everyday person, whatever that looks like. We've seen that with a lot of our athletes for sure, where you can relate so many sports stuff to, actual real life. So that was a really interesting one.
Yeah. Some of my most interesting interviews, in my opinion, and this is not to take away from other interviews, is that are the ones where I just learned stuff that I did not expect to learn.
Yeah.
And it's oh wow, they're really versed in an area that you just didn't realize. So my next question is, who were you the most nervous for previously, leading up to the interview?
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke, your politics head over there?
100%.
Well, you would, because of politics. I would say Beto is probably our first.
Not for the politics. More just because it was a big person, and I felt like we were still new. And
yeah,
that was really early on.
Yeah, no, it was good. Everything went fine. I just knew the impact that it was going to have. People would be like yourself, oh shit, look at what these guys are doing. So I just really wanted to make sure everything was perfect with that one.
I would have to say the same. I would say Beto was probably our first major just major person on the podcast who was there to help us. But, I don't know if he necessarily knew how new we were.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So he might have been expecting whatever he was expecting. But well, thankfully, we were able to pull through with a nice podcast for him.
It was awesome.
Just to relate to you guys, I feel like there have definitely been a couple guests I've had where like they've just been like, I just like reached out to them and the people like, yeah, and they didn't research my podcast because if they did, they would have been like, the ROI is not here. Like this is not the right use of my time. Like with the crowd he has. Who's like the peak guest? Who's the one where you're like, perfect world when we've grown out our podcast enough? Who's the peak guest?
Best person to have on. So I can't say the best person because, they've all been amazing. I don't have any bad guests, but I will say, best like conversations to have. Maybe Don Dixon and Jewel Burks. So those are two entrepreneurs that have done amazing things. Jewel sold her company to Amazon in her 20s, which is nuts. And she works at Google now, leading their Google for Startups division in the US. Don is bootstrapped entrepreneur, super hard worker, has launched 3 successful companies, still killing it, still to this day, we'll share our stuff, and is super supportive. And the conversations were great. Don was really preaching, your network is your net worth and really surround yourself with the best people. And to hear Jewel's story about how the hell she sold her company to Amazon, it's nuts. I feel like, those were, quality wise, good interviews, for everybody. And we really enjoyed having those ones.
Wait, your question, wasn't it?
Well, no, yeah, that wasn't quite my question, but I like the answer though. It's in the future. I didn't even hear that. It was a good answer. I wasn't gonna be bad. It was good.
What you're asking?
Right.
In the future.
You gave a great answer.
You gave such an articulate answer though, so I couldn't be mad at it.
Hey, next time that happens, just interrupt me.
No, I loved it. I was on board.
What's yours though, Michael?
For which question now?
The future.
Perfect
world. Who's the ultimate guest you want?
Got it.
I've always wanted to see somebody like Elon Musk or something like that, where what could you really say about his 20s right now? You don't really know much about his 20s. He was kind of, but that's what it is. Right now, sitting at this table or whatever you want to call it, because we're on Zoom, we couldn't necessarily say what he was doing in his 20s. We know what he was doing now, and we know that he joined Tesla way back when they had not nearly started, but in the early days is when he had joined. So it's really interesting to kind of see that and then where he was. So, yeah.
I agree.
You're going with Elon Musk as well, Landon?
Yes, I am.
Wow, that's unoriginal right there. I think was great. Obviously I'd love to have my class, but specifically for in their 20s, Larry David. He wasn't famous until he didn't Seinfeld didn't hit. That was his first big hit. That he was 40. Yeah.
That would be a really good one too.
Kevin
about the struggle and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll make it happen.
Make it happen. For me, it's all about comedy. I just go to comedy. That's why I'm like Chappelle, Although Chappelle was already doing stand-up in his 20s. He was already famous by that time.
That would be
spectacular. Yeah, I know.
I'd love to have Chappelle on.
I know. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of those comedians were just kind of, hard at the work back then, doing shows, maybe having a regular day job, but then doing those shows at night and really just trying to curate who they are and what they want to do. So. Yeah.
Comedians, I do stand comedy, and comedians are just cut different too. They're just comedians tend to be the type of people who often were outcasts. Not all the time, I don't want to say this, but often were outcasts as kids on some level. They were different in some ways. So I think that would also be interesting, just to be because you always wonder what makes someone want to be a comedian, Yeah. And I still struggle with that answer. I just say that 3 people told me I should do it, and I did it.
Love that.
Not that's kind of true, but there's more to it than that. So when you guys, do you feel like now that you've done, I think you've done I don't be wrong, 20 episodes? No, wait, is that right?
Mixing in like the just like other interviews we've had that we haven't published yet, I'd say we were very close to the cusp of 40.
40. Why did I say 20? I looked it up right before you came on too, and I just
Yeah,
couldn't remember.
those might be
Uh,
published. Yeah.
with the 40 episodes you've done published or not, do you feel like you just know so much more? You have so much more wisdom in your soul now.
Fuck yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Literally, I mean, that's literally why I was saying that we're just super grateful to be doing this. And I'd even, urge anybody to start a podcast. It's super easy. You don't need to have like people on like better or work. You can literally just be talking about, yourself and like what you do and, having your guests.
It's not saturated at all either.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think just like for a few
Super
reasons,
saturated.
to build your brand and learn something, like the sky's the limit. So no, I've learned a lot from doing it.
Did you guys read the article on LinkedIn today? I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's another topic. Oh, you agree? Okay. Did you guys read the article on LinkedIn about podcasts today?
No, which one?
It was like an op-ed piece. Like, don't like give it too much stock. Basically, okay. It's like a 1% or 99% thing where like the top 1% are pulling in the 99% of downloads.
Really? Wow.
But it looks like it's changing.
I believe it. Yeah.
But it looks like it's changing because the podcasting landscape is
that's good.
It's going in a different direction. So your podcast, I don't know if your podcast would technically be considered short form, but they are short interviews. So what was the process behind saying let's keep them short?
Do you want to talk about the early days, Michael?
I don't know where you're going with the early days. I'm not sure. I have an idea in my mindset why it's shorter, but go for it.
Go for it. I don't know.
I was just gonna say in my opinion, I would say that we do have like a shorter kind of platform here because we both want it to be available to the people watching. So we don't want it to be something that's gonna take up a lot of their time. But at the same time, we speak with a lot of people who don't have a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So when we're speaking with somebody who's the CEO of this company or owns this franchise, does that, we can't be like, hey, can we get an hour of your time? Because they'll be like, no, I don't have an hour. Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about? I don't have an hour. So we try and go for more of the short form. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
No, I mean that was well said.
Oh.
I mean, we have an interview coming up, for example, with the most powerful woman in banking. Like, so she is the CTO of Bank of America.
Wow.
She's like 10K plus employees. Like, I mean, so my point is like that's like 30 minutes cut off. Like, but when I was talking about the early days, I meant in the beginning, we went for like really, really short, super short to the point where
they were like 4 minutes long, some of them.
Yeah. So we would record like the full interview and then we would split it up by questions, purely because, as Michael said, and then also to add on to it, like asking for someone's attention, like, it's a big ask, for someone to like sit down and listen or watch something, they got to really like be in love with the brand or, like really be curious or about what this person did. So we felt that, at the beginning, we really wanted to make them as short as possible just to get people to watch them. But now, I mean, while we do, still range anywhere between, I'd say 15 to like 45 minutes, depending on the person we're speaking with, we always try and shoot for that shorter range and just get to the point.
Yeah, some people told me my podcasts are too long. I haven't even been able to figure out like the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Of like podcasting.
You need to rush. I mean, we're still, changing stuff up every
now and then. Yeah. The fun part is, I mean, fun, whatever you want to, maybe not fun, but like, is that at first there's so much trial and error. And you're just like, all right, I'm going to try this. And then it probably won't work. I think, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. So you guys are in the first year of, making this podcast. This is a question for both of you. What are your like long-term goals when you think about this in their 20s?
Yeah. So we do have some, pretty cool news to share, actually. I'd say like one of the biggest goals for this year was to get a brand partnership going with like another larger company that, reflects our values that we'd want to work with. And we have been, connecting with a few other companies and we're looking to finalize something with a company called Upkey. They're in the career readiness startup space. But with this being said, we're going to be joining this thing called a virtual internship program, and they're going to be placing 10 interns at our company to kind of help us grow a little bit. So that's super cool and something that we're looking forward to. So, to know that we already accomplished or coming close to accomplishing, the big goal one for us and leading the other cool things to help us grow has been really great so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that was obviously one of the most vital things that took place in our first year of podcasting. But the goal or idea that we had was just kind of like how are we going to build our brand, right? How are we going to, in different ways, kind of build it? So outside of that, the internships we have given out and the 10 interns that we are going to end up getting, from there, what do we want to do next? So right there, that kind of helps us build our brand. We want different pieces on our Spotify, on our YouTube. We want, what are these people talking about? What are these people talking about? We kind of want more in the same genre though, right? So still in their 20s, which is great because interns, they're usually in their 20s or 18, 19, 20. So it works out perfect. And these characters in their or I don't know if you want to call them characters, but these people in their 20s, I think would be, just a great asset to us as we move forward.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations. That is huge.
Thanks, man.
I don't know if you saw my face when you were saying that, Landon. That's really something. So when you look at in your 20s as an overall brand, obviously right now it's a podcast. You have a website, you have LinkedIn, but it's a podcast. Is there something more in the future, where you extend it beyond podcasting, where you still do podcasting, but there's more to it?
100%. I mean, I think there's a lot of different opportunities to either, collaborate with other content creators, continue to, work with different platforms. Regardless, I think we need to just focus on our mission, and that's helping people in their 20s, by sharing stories about what people did in their 20s. And, whoever wants to listen and watch, it's literally for everybody. But, we're going to continue to be sharing these stories one way or another. And hopefully share some guidance of what people can be doing during this time, or, as they grow, what they need to do to find success.
So, wow, 10 interns.
10.
10. Are these full-time interns?
We haven't shared anything yet besides, with close friends, but I assume by the time this goes live, we'll have already made that.
In 3 days, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, we were going to be making the announcement.
Yeah. Just like you should know in the case it's too soon. Are these full-time interns? These part-time interns?
I mean, interns. We're gonna just have different roles for them. They're gonna be learning a lot about business development, podcasting, content creation. We're just super, super excited. We're still in shock, but again, we've continued to just strategize and have goals and plans for ourselves, and finding ways to get there. So I'd say no matter what you're doing, making a podcast, making a company, trying to do better, at a hobby, a job, when you just set goals for yourself and the ways to actually get there, that's how you can really manifest these goals.
That's really impressive. Within your first year to sign a brand partnership, right? With a company and get in 10 interns. That's incredible. Because when I think about my first year, and I'm only at it for, was it January? So about 4 months in a week, in 1 week. I don't think at all about brand partnerships like that. I'm just like, all right, I'm like, who's the guest for next week? Like, let's worry about that right now, So you guys are moving really quickly. So congratulations. It's amazing. So before we finish here, now that you both are full of wisdom from 40 or so interviews, unpublished and published, what advice do we want to give out to anyone, honestly? Like, you don't need to target it.
Yeah. Michael, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I could go first. That's fine.
Okay.
I would say, the advice I would give is to really be passionate about what you're doing. I know it is a tough time to with all the job loss we have in America right now, to kind of, take that glimpse of inspiration that you have and maybe go outside of your line of career and do something. Um, it is kind of difficult in that way. However, I do think that, if you have that inspiration, if you have that mindset that's getting you, to something you want to do or something you want to be, continue at it, whether it's 5 minutes on the side or, however long on the side of your job, or maybe it is your job, maybe your passion is your job and that's something you really want to achieve, or go out there and break records, or, do whatever you want. That's really what I would say is my advice is do what you're passionate about and do it in what realm it seems possible.
Love that.
Great advice.
Yeah. So I do like this question a lot because, the best advice literally just comes from experiences. And after Michael and I have, interviewed close to 40 people to hear about their experiences, we feel like Buddha now because we have all these, great pieces of advice. I'm constantly looking for like commonalities between our interviews. I'd say like the biggest one that stands out is to really just not care so much in your 20s. Don't want to say that and make people think, okay, like, oh, don't care, meaning like just do nothing. No, I mean like, the best creators, the best entrepreneurs we've spoken to, best athletes, they always had critics telling them, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be getting involved with this, that's never going to do well. But they continued to just not listen to what, critics were saying, didn't care in that sense and just pursued their passion. So I'll connect that then to Michael's. If you don't care and just focus on who you are, what you want to do, that's when you can find true success in your 20s. And we've seen that too. And of course, there were so many people that didn't think this would be a good idea, continuously will want to see us fail, but we're not slowing down. We're not stopping anytime soon because we don't care in that sense. We have our goals, we have our mission, we know what we want to do, we have our plans for this, and there's no need to stop.
If I may add off just that little piece right there, I would say for me, from my own experience, as I build the brand that is Max Hearing, once I started like getting on social media and just posting more often and just like, because I really wasn't all active on it before that, like suddenly there's no time to care.
Yeah.
Suddenly, exactly. Suddenly the more you have to ease yourself into it, but like the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then suddenly you're like, yeah, I'll shamelessly plug whatever I want to shamelessly plug.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. Oh,
sure. No, that's
obviously. Sorry, what's that?
No, that's it. I mean, that's literally like well said. I mean, you just get, comfortable with what you want to do, the content you want to put out, posting as often as you can. But, when you find your niche, because of course, Max, people probably go to your page to see specific things too, whether it's like a laugh or, learn new things. Same with Michael and I, people go to in their 20s to, they have specific reasons for viewing it. But in order to get there, you need to just, not care what people think and could think. Just really care about what you think, and close family and friends. I think that's the best advice. People who will give you the best advice and, have your best interests in mind. But from there, you got to just keep going in that direction.
And sometimes you do need it, even from the people that you care about and who help you. Sometimes you do need to take what they say with a grain of salt.
Yes. Yeah.
So sometimes they're just too far away. It's not their fault. They're just too far away to give you like to give you the advice you need, or like whatever, do whatever. So sometimes even with the people who you generally listen to, you may need to take a step back at times.
Yeah.
So it does happen. Now, thank you guys for coming on so much. Thank you for letting me bother both of you. My first interview with two people. So
yeah, it worked out well.
It was. Yeah, I was like, oh, how's it gonna work? But I figured it out. We all figured it out. Where can we find you guys, the podcast, whatever you want to plug? Where can we find it?
So we're across all platforms: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Twitter, anything that has something, we have it. And it's in their 20s, across all platforms. You can check out our interviews again, as I mentioned, on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Check out our daily inspirational content on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Find us, check us out, and you won't be disappointed.
And you guys specifically.
Yes. And so, yeah, my Instagram is Landon 3 times because one time was taken.
It's just not enough, you know?
And then I think my Instagram is Michael P. Holmes 98 because there's a lot of Michael Holmes in this world.
A lot of Michael Holmes in America. Yeah, that's for sure. So find them in their 20s at everywhere. I mean, you guys I really like the LinkedIn presence you guys have.
Thank you.
Add your future LinkedIn influencers out here. It's a big deal.
Yes.
So find them anywhere in their 20s. The website in their 20s.com.
Yeah.
I think in their 20s.com, LinkedIn, YouTube, literally everywhere. And follow them, Landon, and Michael P. Holmes 98. And for myself, follow Bothering Strangers on Instagram at Bothering Strangers and Max Hearing One on Instagram. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Landon and Michael, for coming on. And everyone, stay safe.
Awesome.